Here's what most people think they're doing when they write an SOP. They're documenting a process. They're putting things in order. They're making sure nobody screws up the way they do things. That's not what an SOP is. That's just a checklist. This is Work Yourself Out of a Job, the show about building systems that make you redundant. I'm Mikey, and today we're doing the one thing that turns your work from a job into infrastructure. It's not about checking boxes or writing down what you do. It's about making sure that someone else can do it without asking you a single question. Let me explain what that means in practice. The machine has 4 parts, and the first one is SOPs. A good SOP isn't some wall of text that nobody reads. It's the shortest sequence of steps that lets someone who's never done this task produce your output without ever needing to talk to you again. You know how people say, just write it down? They're wrong. You don't just write it down, you test it. You hand it off to someone who's never seen the process and watch exactly where they get stuck. Then you go back and fix that friction. That loop is what turns an SOP from documentation into infrastructure. An SOP is only real when a stranger can run it without you. Here's how to build one. First, write your draft like it's a recipe, but not a recipe that anyone's ever seen before. It needs to be simple enough for someone who's never done it. No assumptions, no shortcuts, no thinking out loud. Second, hand it off, not just to a coworker, to someone who's never touched the task. Don't give them context. Don't explain anything. Just let them try to follow your steps and see where they get lost. Third, loop back. That person will find friction you've already stopped noticing. You'll be surprised by how many gaps are there. That's not a failure. That's the signal you were looking for. Fix those points, then do it again. Hand it off to someone new and keep iterating until the process is smooth. Fourth, make it readable, not just for your team, but for future you. If you hand off a file and someone else can follow it in 6 months without needing your input, that's a real SOP. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to make it possible. Fifth, use the same loop for judgment too. You know how you decide what to do when you're not sure? That decision-making isn't magic. It's pattern you've internalized. You can write those rules down. Start by watching yourself do a task. Narrate out loud every time you pause. That's where your unspoken rules live. Capture the conditions, the triggers, the decisions. Write them down as, if X and Y, do A. That's encoded judgment. The goal is to handle 80% of cases automatically and flag only the rest to a human. Here's what goes wrong. Most people write their SOPs and assume they're done, but that's not how systems work. A tested SOP with real friction points is the difference between a process and an infrastructure. People also get confused about what judgment actually is. They think it's some mystical decision-making, but most of it is just unspoken rules. You're not going to capture every edge case, and you don't have to, just enough that the system can handle what comes up most. Another mistake? Not testing early or often. A SOP that's never run by a stranger is just paper. It only becomes real when you hand it off and fix what breaks. And lastly, people treat judgment like it's sacred or unmeasurable. But if you watch yourself do something and talk through the pauses, you'll find all the logic you need, even if it doesn't look like it at first. You don't wait for a perfect SOP before testing it. So here's your rule of thumb. If you can't hand off an SOP to someone new and see them succeed without talking to you, that SOP isn't real yet, and you're not really building infrastructure, you're just writing more work. The system starts with the SOP, the rest builds from it. If you build the machine correctly, one day you won't even have to be in the room anymore. This is a hard one for people because they think they're being thorough when they're just being overcomplicated. They think more steps mean better results. They don't realize that more friction equals more failure. They also don't get how judgment works or how to capture it. A lot of judgment isn't genius, it's habit. You do something so often you stop noticing why you picked one path over another. That's where your real decision-making lies. And the worst part? They try to make their SOPs perfect before testing them. That's the opposite of how infrastructure works. You test first, you build second. That loop is what turns your process into a system that actually runs itself. You don't build a system by dreaming it up. You build it by watching it fail and then fixing it. That's how you work yourself out of a job. If you can make someone else do your job without ever having to talk to them again, that's not just efficiency. That's infrastructure. If this one earned its 30 minutes, the full system is inside the course at learn.mikey.ai. I'm Mikey. Stop doing things. Start making them repeatable.